trying to think, like, what, if you didn't watch the season, what do you need to know? And what you need to know, and or you're trying to jog your memory, is that a big part of Edwina and Kate is Kate learning that she is allowed to choose herself, and that in choosing herself, she is not choosing
Edwina. Yeah. Everybody, we're the good doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
You are so very welcome to this little corner of the interwebs where we are talking about Bridgerton Season 2. If you're watching this live as it airs on YouTube, you'll know we just did an episode-by-episode recap of Bridgerton. If you found us because you're searching for a Bridgerton 2 season recap before Season 3 comes out, hello! Hello in the future. We don't do traditional play-by-play recaps. So if that's what you're looking for, go with God and go elsewhere. I'm sure there's other people who have, including probably Netflix. They do really clever recaps with visuals. But what we're going to do is a larger thematic analysis of 3 categories: characters, relationships, and overall themes of the show. So we'll talk through our thoughts and feelings about those 3 things, name some of our themes, have a discussion of them, and then, much as we teased throughout our entire episode 8 recap, we will tell you our hopes and dreams for Season 3. We were left in a much more vague place than we were at the end of Season 1 in terms of what Season 3 will bring us. So that just means that Kristen and I get to waffle for as long as we want about what we hope to see, because it's not going to be as direct as we knew we were getting from this season, which is the story of Anthony Bridgerton, Viscount Bridgerton, the oldest Bridgerton child, and his tumultuous love story with Kate Sheffield in the books, Sharma in the show. Thank you once again, Bridgerton writers, for listening to us when we asked you for a Southeast Asian Kate. We appreciate that. If you don't want to watch our recap, you can skip to the end where we will give you our notes for Season 3. Thank you so much. Dr. Kristen, which character or group of characters would you like to start with first?
Let's get rid of the Featheringtons first.
How did I know? How could I possibly know that would be your choice? Yes, let's please, because I think that will be the quickest one for us.
So essentially, we find the Featheringtons at the beginning of Season 2 completely broke and awaiting the arrival of the new Lord Featherington, Jack. Throughout the season, we discover that Jack is actually quite poor, completely broke, and is running a bit of a Ponzi scheme on the ton.
He's a charlatan.
He is a charlatan, which is a crime. Being a charlatan is a crime in the country of Brazil, which we learned this year. So
amazing.
He's a charlatan. He has convinced everybody he has these ruby mines in Georgia. Nope. And at the end, he gets his comeuppance in that he is sent back to Georgia with nothing more than he came with. And Portia will keep the money that he made from the ton. She's done some sort of machinations where she and her girls will not suffer any of the consequences of her partnership with Jack as they fleeced the ton. One of them is married.
Prudence.
Philippa is married. Prudence was engaged to cousin Jack. I'm sure she'll be ever so disappointed to find that he's in America. And then we can talk about Penelope and we can talk about Penelope and Eloise later. But the Featherington family, of which we never really associate Penelope, to be honest.
Right.
The Featherington storyline advances nothing.
I know.
And I think all we have learned is that Portia Featherington, as I said in the last video, is the Twinkie of the ton. She will survive everything. It will be cockroaches, Twinkies, and Portia Featherington at the end of time. And that's not as interesting of a story to me as it might be to other people. While I appreciate Polly Walker's incredible performance, I don't need to see it anymore.
Yeah.
What this proved to me is that as much as Shonda might like to want to tell the story of these two families, without any source material for the Featheringtons, they couldn't come up with source material. So if you could now just please...
It's lacking the structure that clearly we have of the Bridgerton clan.
Yeah, like, just let them be the antagonist at, like, balls and stuff. It's fine. But
and
again...
and we can still focus on Penelope without focusing on the Featheringtons.
And, like, if you sign Polly Walker to a 4-season contract, I'm sorry. And now this is when I get into my previous rant about the frustrations of the limitations of television. But you don't have a story to tell about her.
No,
so either come up with a story or cut her contract.
Yeah, because and we talked about this in episode 8, they told the same exact story.
Same one, just with a different dude and a slightly different outcome.
They told the story that as much as she bemoans her 3 daughters, that is all Portia Featherington has. Mm-hmm. And that is her team, and she will always choose her team over all others, and she will, much like the Twinkie that she is, do whatever it takes to protect her team and survive. Great. That was the lesson we learned from season 1. So the fact that we get to that same realization at the end of season 2 left us both very perturbed. Puzzled. Yeah, I wasn't here for it. What I was here for was the development of Penelope as a character. I was here for it at the beginning. By the end, I've accepted what they've decided to do. It was not the story I would choose to tell. But again, it's one of those where they're lacking a lot of source material about Penelope up until a certain point. She is very much a side character in the first 3 books. I don't even remember if she's in Benedict's book that much because a lot of Benedict's book doesn't take place in London.
No.
So, like, Penelope wouldn't be there. And it's the story of Benedict and the woman he falls in love with. So they've escalated the trajectory of Penelope a bit. And they did that again in this season. They created a lot of drama with her and Colin. They wrote while he was traveling. They're much closer. He cares for her. He friend zones her 100% by the end and crushes her tiny little broken heart.
I mean, like, he puts her in a friend zone and then builds a wall to make sure she can never get out of the friend zone. Like, it is dramatic.
And then insults her from the other side of the wall.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what happens. Because he is a undercooked Muppet, as I was about
to say, yeah. One of your big takeaways is Colin Bridgerton, the undercooked Muppet. Yeah, so, I mean, I love Nicola Coughlan with almost my whole heart. I love that we get her... I liked the behind the scenes of Lady Whistledown a bit, because that's not something we really get until book 4, and even then we don't get the kind of detail of, like, how she figures out how to get to the printers. And, like, she puts on a cloak and pretends to be an Irish maid, which, you know, we didn't get her Galway accent. We got a very thick Dublin accent, but it was closer to what Nicola Coughlan sounds like in real life than she's ever sounded on the 2 main television shows she's been on. So I liked that bit of Penelope. But then the main part of Penelope is the Pen Louise of it all. So why don't you take Pen Louise and tell me, you know, where we got with that?
A nuclear bomb is where we got with that. So
what happened? Everything, and it was horrible.
Everything, and it was horrible. Eloise is still on her hunt to both find Lady Whistledown and make her pay, essentially, for what she's done when we start the season, and also on her journey to be a blue stocking. And one of Eloise's character traits is that she never actually sees anyone else around her. She is so, in a certain way, like, she wouldn't call it anger, and it doesn't manifest as rage, but it's angry. Like, she is fundamentally angry that this is the world she has to live in.
Yeah.
And it colors
yeah.
everything.
I would say sometimes angry. She's definitely disappointed, confused, frustrated, like, all because she knows she doesn't fit into this world she was born into, and she doesn't want to.
No. And there doesn't appear to be any other options, so she keeps trying to create options.
Yeah.
So, through a bunch of plot devices, including a literal boy named Theo that we called a plot device, Eloise finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown by the end of this season. And the way that one of the things that happens in between those two times is that in order to protect Eloise from the Queen thinking that she's Lady Whistledown, Penelope writes essentially a scathing expose. She spills her tea on Maine, calls her out on Maine, and tells the entire ton that Eloise is in love with a printer and has been consorting with a clerk.
Consorting with political radicals.
Political radicals.
Drums.
So then, an episode later, which, like, in the show is like a week and a half, I mean, like, maybe 3 weeks later that this happens, finds out that it's her best friend that set that bomb off in the middle of her life. You can imagine that Eloise doesn't handle it well.
No.
And then Eloise says things that she 100% means in that moment. Penelope then says things that she 100% means in that moment. And we end the season with both of them completely distraught and unmoored. And I don't know. I mean, Eloise knows that she's Whistledown. What we don't know is what she's going to do with that information. And we don't know what Penelope is going to do now that someone else knows who isn't Madame Delacroix. We don't know a lot, and that's going to be really interesting in season 3. But what you need to know going into season 3 is that Penelope is also a survivor. She was raised by her mother, and she was raised as an outcast in her own family, and she will do what it takes to survive. And at this point in her life, her little 19-year-old self, she has decided that Whistledown is all she has. Mm-hmm. So she fought to protect Whistledown, and in doing, this is going to be one of my themes later on, in doing what she thought it would take to protect Eloise, she destroyed Eloise.
Yeah.
We have some real Hamilton energy in this situation. So, like, this is the equivalent of publishing the Reynolds pamphlet. And she thought so sure that this would save Eloise and that she could survive this scandal or what have you. But there's a lot of things that Penelope didn't calculate.
Yeah.
And including what it would do to Eloise's own self to be called out in Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
And kind of what that looks like.
And I think it's an evolution that we get of Penelope that we do get in her book, where she starts to realize the way Whistledown is impacting people, and, you know, the consequences of her actions. And at one point, when she hasn't been writing for a while, she takes a break, and her sisters are sitting around talking about, you know, oh, there hasn't been a Whistledown in a week. Like, that's crazy. And they all say, maybe she's doing this, maybe she's doing this. And Penelope says, maybe she's tired of ruining people's lives. And Penelope said that. So it's this, like, fascinating battle between the damage she knows she's causing, whether she feels she has to or not, whether she feels it's, you know, the choice that she was left with after the Ton has rejected her for being an outsider. It's a huge part of her armor. And, like, the love that she has for the sense of self that being Whistledown gives her, the voice that it gives her that she doesn't have as a rejected wallflower. And the only other thing she had was her relationship with Eloise, and her imaginary relationship with Colin in a way, or what she hopes it will be. And both of those crash and burn in this season. And so then, literally, all she knows how to do and all that she has left is write and be Whistledown. So I don't know what that's going to mean for Penelope in season 3, but it's going to be interesting.
For sure. So now, as we move from Eloise into the rest of the Bridgertons, I mean, we're really talking about people and relationships at the same time. So we're kind of
alluding
those two categories.
We're
If you're like, but they just talked about Penn Louise, are we going to get another Penn Louise segment? You're not. We have now talked about Penn Louise.
Never again.
Never again. Never. So as we move into the rest of the Bridgertons, Francisca, Hyacinth, and Gregory are still, to varying degrees, non-major plot points.
Yeah.
Hyacinth has a really lovely scene in episode 7. Gregory has a really great one in episode 8. Hyacinth and Gregory are around a lot this season. They're in a lot of the family scenes, but they're not plot points.
Yeah, and we heard from Cyber Lucy, who comments on a lot of our Bridgerton stuff, that the actress who plays Francesca had other commitments, and so that's why she's only in the first couple of episodes and not at all. She wasn't very much in season 1 either. I'm glad she's getting other acting work, but eventually we're going to have to actually get introduced to Francesca as we run out of Bridgertons to wed.
Yeah, so hopefully they can do some better timing now that the COVID isn't messing up schedules in the same manner.
Yeah.
So Colin's thing this season is that he was traveling. He is now back from traveling. They all find him insufferable talking about his traveling, just like everyone who's ever sat you down and made you do vacation slides. And he is still eating and trying to find his place in the world. And that will continue until he gets his happily ever after. That is the main theme of Colin Bridgerton, is who am I? I'm a third son. Why am I just the third son? I'm the comic relief. I'm the one who eats. Like, why don't I have an identity? Why woe is me?
Yeah, and like, it's so interesting because I love what they do in the book as well, that I think they're getting into and they're hinting at with Colin, is that he has no idea who he is aside from being a Bridgerton. Yeah. And he feels like all he is a Bridgerton. Yeah. And he's just like, you know, he talks about, in his monologue in his book, he's like, people just see me and they just say, oh, you're a Bridgerton. Which one are you? Yeah. And so the privilege that being a Bridgerton affords him, but also the limitations in that, like, he really wants to find a lane for himself, which is why we get him potentially investing in Lord Featherington's ruby mine in Georgia. And thanks to the Will Mondrich, who we still have no idea why he was there, except apparently to serve as this plot device for Colin to realize Featherington was lying. But when he tells Penelope, he's like, I want to make a name for myself. So clearly that will be the Colin that we see going forward, is figuring out how to balance being a Bridgerton and being Colin at the same time.
So then we have Benedict, and his big thing is that he gets into the art academy. We learn it is because Anthony made a large donation. But what is interesting about that revelation, and the internet hates this revelation, but what is interesting about that revelation is that the show is not making the argument that he's not a good painter.
No, in fact, they make an argument that he's quite a good painter.
He's quite a good painter. And my understanding, which entirely comes from romance novels, about art school and patrons and things like that at this time is that nobody got in without a really big donation. Like, that the Royal Art Academy was entirely about giant donations. And so if one of our artist friends can correct me, like, my thing, like, as I was thinking, I was like, well, of course he had to do that, because where else is, like, how else would the school be making money?
Yeah, so, I mean, putting on my art historian hat for a minute, you want to tell me you're mad about nepotism in the art world? You can miss me. Yeah. You can miss me. Like, the only, we do have the starving artist story, for sure. And we get that going all the way back to pre-Regency time. Like, it goes all the way back to Renaissance times. So we do get that trope, but, like, Michelangelo was good because the Pope liked him. Like, I'll rephrase that. Michelangelo was known because the Pope liked him. And he forced him to paint the Sistine ceiling. Michelangelo hated painting. One of the most famous works of art in the world was a result of patronage. Like, it's what the art world is built on. So I found it not at all surprising. I understand why it was upsetting to Benedict, but, like, sign of the times. Miss me with your criticism of that revelation. That's how the art world works.
Yeah, and because they're being so interesting with Benedict regarding his character development, I can see a couple different ways in which this can play out in season 3, and I'm okay with all of them.
Same, because it's all better than the book.
It's all better than the book. Also, with Benedict, we need to talk about the potential of queer baiting, which we talked about last season as us saying that last season didn't feel like queer baiting as long as they kept his bisexuality, potential bisexuality, going. Because this season showed absolutely no interaction with anybody but one woman, some potential with Madame Delacroix that she shut on down. This is flirting with queer baiting. And if we see nothing else for the rest of the series, and he never flirts with another man, never kisses another man, never does anything with another man, season 1 was 100% queer baiting. So they are flirting with some really kind of annoying territory right now that I hope they correct in seasons moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll get into one of my themes that I want to talk about at the end when we get to themes is like, we'll give them a report card on this whole colorblind diversity Regency proposal. But yeah, they dropped any sort of queer storylines like a hot potato. So that was a real inconsistency for me and especially for, it's almost like they had 2 different writers on that subject line. 'Cause like it was throughout season 1 and then disappeared. Even like, how Bridgerton understands himself as an artist was so much shaped by his relationship with that dude who was queer.
And where did that dude go?
And like, he didn't want to come back for season 2. It's a Regé-Jean Page thing. Fine. You could just have a throwaway line that's like, oh, well, I'm not really sure what to do with my painting since the salon closed down and so moved to Rome. But the fact that they just left it drop with no reference, to me, makes it look like they didn't think about it, or they just decided not to care about it, which is the part that I have a problem with. But I loved Benedict in this season. Yeah, I was so surprised. I liked him in the first season. The Benedict of the books might be my least favorite Bridgerton, although I find Gregory insufferable.
Gregory's mine. Yeah, Gregory's mine, but that's okay.
Gregory is insufferable. I have read that book once and never want to again. So please make all the changes to Gregory that you see fit. Shondaland. But yeah, Benedict is second in terms of insufferableness. But I really like what they're doing with him here. And I think they've left a lot of doors open for him figuring out who he wants to be too. And like, he's in the same position as Colin in terms of being a Bridgerton, being only seen as a Bridgerton, being the second son. He has it even worse than Colin because it's like second son syndrome. And Anthony brings that up with him in episode 8 when he goes to see him, and he says, just because you're the second son doesn't mean you don't have familial duty. You don't get to get high and paint naked ladies for the rest of your life. Anthony was wrong. But I think Benedict is certainly going to think about what that balance looks like for him. And I'm excited to see where they go with it.
Yeah. So we're going to hit pause on the Bridgertons because we got to talk about Anthony later.
Yeah.
So let's really quick do a tour. Queen Charlotte is magical in this season.
Delightful.
We get more depth to her marriage and her relationship with King George. During this season is also when we learned that we're getting a spin-off with young Charlotte, and I am delighted at that idea.
So excited.
Utterly delighted. So that'll be really fun. Can't wait to dig into that character, especially as it's being built here on the season. Lady Danbury, queen of all things.
Just impeccable casting. Phenomenal. She delivers every line with bite and wit and intelligence. I loved her relationship with Kate.
Yep.
As a mentor,
yep.
as an independent and powerful woman who was trying to tell her, like, this, you have all of these fixed opinions, young lady, and let me tell you how the world works. Mama Lady Danbury was just great. I loved her in this season and will continue to love her. Please just keep up the Lady Danbury content. The Lady Danbury and like Violet Bridgerton manipulative, managing mamas of the ton. Adored.
Got some really great Madame Delacroix content in this one where she became part of the...
She became a real person.
Became a real person. We got to keep her around. She has a friendship with Penelope now. I don't know where we're going to go with her, but I hope that... I think her name is Catherine Ashdale. I could be wrong. I hope she sticks around. She is delightful. We did check in on Marina and discovered that Marina is not mentally well, but she is fine. We met her husband for reasons I can only assume mean that he is in fact going to be the one that marries Eloise, which I'm not entirely sure how we're going to get there, but sure, okay.
Okay, there can be very little reason, because you and I talked about this, I think offline, right? Like, you want to tell me that we had unresolved tension with Colin and Marina, and for him to move on to finding out who he is, he needed to talk to her? Fine, I buy it.
Okay, fine. I buy it.
Fine, I buy it. Why did Sir Philip need to be there? Why did we need to get the bestie montage of Sir Philip and Colin talking about traveling and discovering things? That does not need to happen unless we're doing something with Sir Philip Crane later, unless they're going to drop him like they dropped what's-his-name from season 1, but I don't think so, because we got him in both seasons. I did not care for it. But
it's not that I don't care. That's too strong. I just kind of went, really? We're wasting time on this?
This is time that could be spent on a longer epilogue.
This is time that could be with Kate and Anthony. And so it was just kind of like, okay. Who else? Violet Bridgerton. Incredible meditations on grief.
Oh, so good.
Incredible conversations about motherhood and legacy. Lovely performance by Ruth Gamble. Really great. Everything about Violet Bridgerton. Just a really, really great job.
What I noticed in watching this season that I loved, that I wanted to bring up, was like the character choices that the actors make sometimes are so interesting to me. Violet Bridgerton's walk is amazing. I don't know how Ruth decided on it, but it's this quick little jaunt, and the way she carries her body when she does it is energetic, youthful, but also purposeful. And I noticed it this season, and I was like, I don't know how you decided on this walk, but yes.
Love it. Then we're going to jump on over to the Sharmas. Lady Mary doesn't really get to do much. And I think we could have done more with Lady Mary than we did. But now for me, the rest of the recap is dedicated to Edwina, Kate, and Anthony. Is there anybody I'm missing?
No, I think we referenced everybody else in terms of side characters and the whatnots. Yeah, okay. I think it's I will say though, what I loved was the stories about Lady Mary, before we move on to the younger Sharmas, was that we do get from both her and Lady B these reflections on grief, and also how they were absent for a period of time that they didn't necessarily realize dramatically impacted their eldest children.
Yeah.
So the scenes that we got from Lady Mary with that, I appreciated. She kind of moved in and out of this season weirdly. She was present a lot more when we learned the story of her scandal and how she was the diamond of her season and a friend of the Queen's, and then the Queen was real salty about her moving to India and marrying a clerk, and then she disappears for a while in terms of storyline and comes back at the end for this. She seemed more plot devicey to me than Lady Bridgerton is just a part of the Bridgertons. But I did love that storyline, because that's fundamentally the story of Kate and Anthony, is dealing with their mother's grief and the impact that it had on them. But yeah, I don't know that we're going to get any more with Lady Mary, because I don't know that. I hope we get Edwina in the second season, please. Edwina and Lady Mary in Danbury House, please. But speaking of Edwina, let's tackle that.
Edwina is one of my favorite characters in this, because her journey, just like everybody else in this season, is about discovering who she is in a really fundamental way. Yep. And she has to do that through grief, and she has to do that through some real trauma, because her sister is a Muppet who lies. For all of the best reasons.
Okay, plugging in my phone. Sorry, friends. There we go.
For all the best reasons and all of the best motivations, which we'll get to in a little bit, Kate's actions still cause great harm to Edwina. But out of that, episodes 7 and 8, her performance, the actress's name keeps escaping me.
Chandra, CH something. Chandra?
I don't remember.
Chandra?
I haven't watched any interviews with her the way that I've obsessively watched everything with Simone Ashley, so like it's not quite there. The way that she portrayed this wise character who was both really young and really grounded and mature at the same time was wonderful. I really would love it if the Queen follows through on her promise to introduce her to the Prince of whatever. And we get that kind of, even just a mention of that in season 3. Could I just hear that Edwina is now the princess of wherever? I'd love that. That would make me so happy.
I know. I would love to see like a little bit of their courting, but even if you just want to like show us that like the season starts and she's like at the royal wedding and the Queen's delighted with herself and Kate and Antony are happy. Like, again, as we always say, Bridgerton writers, if you're taking note.
Yeah.
If you can only get Freddie what's his name for one episode, please make that happen. Because like the Queen is right when she tells her, like in episode 6, I think, you're wasted as a viscountess. So I think that's when she starts to get these plans for like, what? Maybe she will be my diamond after all, and wouldn't it be quite the coup for her to become princess of wherever, Bavaria? I don't know.
I can't remember. I loved it though.
Yeah.
So would love to do that. The other relationship that I'm like looking at the time, and we try not to make these an hour long, and we're already at 30 minutes.
We haven't even gotten to themes. It's a lot happened. It's okay.
So the other relationship I really loved with Edwina was the one with Kate, and the evolution of what it means to be a sister and how do we do all of that. And I really, really appreciated that. I'm trying to think like what, if you didn't watch the season, what do you need to know? And what you need to know and or you're trying to jog your memory is that a big part of Edwina and Kate is Kate learning that she is allowed to choose herself. Mm-hmm. And that in choosing herself, she is not choosing Edwina.
Yeah.
That there needs to be a balance in choice. And so that's a really big part of Kate being able to show up for Anthony as a spouse rather than as a sparring partner.
Yeah, and I think, one of the themes for this type of show, looking at a particular class in the Regency era, is so much about the performances we make and the versions of ourselves we have to perform for society. And we see that through all these characters that we've talked about. Marina and getting pregnant out of wedlock, Penelope, Colin, Eloise, and certainly the Sharma sisters in this season as well. And we talked about this in episode 8, but we get this fantastic scene with Kate and Edwina where Edwina says to her, like, I am not sure I like the two young women we've been playing. Can we please be authentically ourselves so that you can know me and I can know you and we can be sisters and not like society robots. Yeah. And it was great. I loved that evolution of their relationship because it's specific and universal at the same time, which is great storytelling because it's very specific to the high society of the ton. But we all perform for individuals and we all struggle with bringing our full selves into relationships. And that actress acted the shit out of it in those last 2 episodes. I did not care for Edwina very much in the first couple episodes. But as a character, I really like that at first I was perturbed that they made her such a character. Because then that to me indicated that they weren't going to stick to the storyline for Kate and Antony. But by the end, since that's what they committed to, they really made her a character.
Yeah, they did.
Not a plot device to get Kate and Antony together. And I appreciate that. It was a good decision and it was good acting.
So I want to make sure to throw some names in here because I just pulled up the IMDb. So Edwina Sharma is expertly played by Charithra Chandran.
That's where
Gorgeous.
the Chandran was coming from. Yeah, Charithra. She was amazing.
Queen Charlotte is played by Golda Roussevel.
Yes.
Absolute greatness. Genevieve Delacroix is played by Catherine Drysdale. And I am scrolling to find Lady Danbury.
Lady D.
Lady D. Ajoa Ando.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible performances, and really, really appreciating how much fun all of those ladies we just named are having.
Oh my gosh.
Just having the time of their damn lives. So really, really lovely work.
What a joy. Yes.
Yeah.
Well done. All right. Are we ready for Canthony?
Let's go, Canthony.
Let's go, Canthony. Yeah. So, I mean, as I alluded to moments ago, if you were listening, this is a story of two people who...
Can we just, like, take a chunk of our episode 8 recap and, like, dump it right here? If you're watching these videos back to back, you're going to hear a lot of repetition.
If you're watching this, if you haven't watched any of our videos and you're watching this for season 3, you're very welcome. Kate and Antony is the story of two oldest siblings who lose their fathers at a very young age, lose their mothers for a time to grief, and then who decide to make a lot of decisions for themselves and for the rest of their family without asking anyone, which I know
without double checking anything.
Which I know is one of your themes that we will get to. And it is the story of where they both have to learn what it means to be a real sibling and not the head of the family, and how to be both at the same time, where they learn how their actions have hurt their siblings and their parents, and where they learn that it is okay to choose themselves, and that it is possible to do all of that together. And that is the balance of their story towards each other. They have different paths to take to get to that realization. Antony gets there just a hair bit faster than our Kate, but they get there at the end, which is what matters to us. We've said this ad nauseum. This was not the story we would have told of Kate and Antony, but I'm okay with it, and I'm happy with this story.
I mean, we could say more, but I think, like, that's it. Like, that's really what it is. Like, that's what you need to know. Anthony has found his happiness, which also means he's going to kind of unloosen a little bit as the Viscount. He's going to be a much better support for his brothers and sisters moving forward. We have a couple more love stories to get to, and Anthony's got, 2 more seasons to pay for. So, we're going to keep that going. Kate is going to really integrate herself into the Bridgerton clan, and we're going to, at least in the books, we see her consistently throughout the rest of the stuff.
Because she becomes
the spouse most present.
Yeah, she becomes the Viscountess, and so, eventually her and Antony take over Bridgerton house, and Lady B moves nearby, but to not the main house, and so Kate is hosting the balls, and so hopefully Netflix learned their lesson from Regé John Page and locked in Simone Ashley for a few more seasons. So we get to see that they become the head of the family as a team.
As a team.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to themes now. Our second/third part of our recap here before we get into what we're hoping for, which I have so many hopes and dreams for season 3 and 4.
I know.
So I have decided on 4 themes for this season. 4 things I want you all to know moving forward that summarize to me season 2.
Yeah.
The first is the tension between duty and love. If you didn't pick up on this as a theme, I have some real questions for how closely you were paying attention to things.
Were you on your phone?
Were you on your phone the whole time? How is your Wordle score? Like, I mean, it is like, this is the theme. And then connected to that for me is this idea that of the mistakes that we make and the hurt that we cause when we make choices we think are protecting other people without their consent or knowledge.
Yeah.
And the main culprits of this are Kate, Anthony, and Penelope.
Yes.
Consistently throughout forever. So that's a major theme, and I think that's one we'll play with Penelope moving forward.
Yeah.
The idea of duty and love we're really not going to see come up again because none of the other siblings deal with it in the same way. Identity versus love, duty is not baked into them in the same way.
Yeah, no, it was always going to be Daphne and
Antony.
Antony, because the two of them had to get married in order to be able to help their siblings get married. It just had to happen.
That was necessary. So we're going to see some different things, but I think this idea of mistakes, of pain against like consent kind of thing is somewhat of a Bridgerton trait. I think they're going to bumble and make some more mistakes. And that could be a theme kind of moving forward, because it's one of the themes of humanity. How often have we all made a decision that ended up hurting a lot of people that we loved because we thought it was going to protect them?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the essence of Penelope's choice that she has to make every time she writes a whistle down.
Every single time.
Yeah, so, and we got a lot of that, and her kind of inner conflict and realizing the damage she can do with her quill in this season, so I'm sure we'll get that going forward.
My third theme I titled as Colin Bridgerton is an undercooked Muppet. And I say Colin, but honestly, they're all undercooked Muppets, except for Edwina.
Colin and Benedict for show, and then also Eloise. I mean, obviously Hyacinth and Gregory are, because they're like 10 and 13 or whatever. But oh gosh, the Bridgerton boys, So they're all. When we say undercooked, by the way, I don't mean they're like raw, dough. Humans are not developmentally kind of mature and able to make concrete decisions until at least the age of 25, all the way up to 30. And what Colin and Benedict and Penelope and Eloise and Kate and Anthony demonstrate in this episode, in this season, is they are all undercooked Muppets. Mm-hmm. And they are all just making lots of decisions that we have all made at different times in our lives. In order to protect themselves, protect the people they love. They're not thinking of consequences. They may not be developmentally able to think of consequences. And that's a real, we lash out and we cause a lot of accidental pain in adolescence. And that's where we're sitting with a lot of these folks. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we get way more in this season than in last season. The actions have consequences, and we see the pain that Penelope causes. We see the pain that Eloise causes. We see the pain that Colin causes. Not so much Benedict, but I'm sure we will as he continues to decide who he's going to be. But certainly for those three, and then obviously Kate and Anthony, that was a much more present theme in this season than in season 1 for sure.
And finally, this isn't really a theme. This is just like a point I'd like to make, is that Queen Charlotte is the low-key MVP and might be the most fully realized character. We see so many facets of her. Her grief, her fun, her boredom, her confusion. We see so much, and I really am so glad they added Lady Charlotte to this, Queen Charlotte to this world. I'm so excited to explore her further.
I agree. Yeah. She fits in really well. They know exactly what to do with her, where I don't feel that they know that necessarily with some of the other side characters. Although I feel like, aside from the Marina and Philip of it all the other kind of side characters were a lot more realized in this season, or continued to progression in their into realness. Because I wasn't sure I was sold on Madame Delacroix, but I like her angle that she brings. I like some of the things they gave her to say in terms of, a constant theme of this show is being a woman, what being a woman in this society looks like. That is often a theme of Shondaland shows, more so than looking at specifically what it means to be a man at all different levels of society, although, arguably the Will Mondrich is kind of maybe doing that a little bit, but not as explicitly as this idea of being a woman, making your own decisions, having agency. We get that with Eloise and Madame Delacroix most specifically, but and even the Queen, what it means to have that kind of power, but then
and
also
still be a woman in 1813.
A woman who loves her husband, who is suffering through a prolonged and horrific mental illness, all of those things. So you've sold me, Bridgerton writers, on Delacroix and Queen Charlotte. I'm excited to see what happens for them. Before we get into our hopes and thoughts, I want to quickly do this diversity report card that we talked about. I think they did a much better job this season of making it seem natural and not forced. We saw a lot more diversity, at least in terms of skin color, in the Ton. A lot more, dark-skinned black folks, a lot more Asian folks, all kinds of mixes of humans that they have created in this colorblind world. I thought the parts of Hindi and Indian culture that were revealed through the Sharmas were done lovely. We know there's been some criticisms that it's a bit mishmashy, but I loved it for the naturalness of it. It was not a plot point. It was part of who these people were.
Yeah, and I loved that it wasn't white. Like they didn't, like, even if it was lazy and kind of mismatchy, I'll still take that it wasn't white.
Yeah, and we talked at length in season 1 about the botched conversation with Lady Danbury and Simon about race. And they stumbled through that in the first season. This felt a lot more like in the pocket.
Yep.
In terms of representing other humans that aren't white.
Like within the limitations of the world that this show has created, this felt...
Yeah, lived in. It did.
Thank you.
What didn't feel lived in was any sort of queer experience.
Ooh,
at all.
Big fat zero on that.
Because there was none of it.
Nope.
Sweet F all, as we say. So on that, so I think on the ethnic and racial diversity, I think that I'm happy giving them a solid A-. On the class diversity, I think they're doing an okay job. They're not really making it a story, but for what they did with Theo and Mondrich and everything, that's a solid B. They're talking about class. They're not ignoring it.
Yeah.
Theo was a plot device. God love him, but he did bring that conversation in. For queer diversity, we're going to give it a big fat F.
Yep.
Drop the ball on that one, Bridgerton writers. Please pick it up again and do a better job. That it was just, it was very frustrating to have had this whole conversation about season 1. We talked about queer baiting. We talked about a lot of things. And then it was just like, what?
Yeah.
It's gone.
Oh, nothing.
It's gone. And the last one that we talked about a lot was body shape diversity. And
F.
again, we're going to give it a big fat F.
And also we should say ability diversity. There was nobody in a wheelchair, which there was somebody last season in a wheelchair. There was nobody on crutches. There was nothing.
Yeah, all we have is Lady D and her very fashionable cane. So yeah.
Which we're not entirely sure isn't just like, I'm not sure she needs it to walk, I think.
Yeah, because she seemed to do fine in that country dance that they did at Bridgerton House.
Indeed. So I'm like, oh, this is an affectation for power. I'm here for it. But yeah, it wasn't great.
F on that one. F on that one too. So, overall, looking at this school year, we've seen some good growth.
We have some more room for improvement. Yeah.
Room for improvement. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Speaking of room for improvement, what would you like to see in season 3?
Okay, so things that will not happen, but I'd still like to see. I would love for them to plot this better and pace this better. They won't. But I would really love for them to understand fundamentally that so they've got to decide, are they giving us a soap opera? Are they giving us a drama? Or are they dramatizing a romance novel?
Yes.
And right now they are trying to do all 3, and they gotta pick a lane. Like they just gotta pick a lane. And if they pick the 3rd, then 2 things have to exist. Sex and joy. So I need more nakedness and I need more joy. Mm-hmm. What they tried to do this season was a dramatic soap opera.
Yes.
And I did not enjoy it as much as season 1, which was a dramatization of a romance novel.
Of a romance. Yes, that's a great distinction. Yeah.
And so I don't know which way they're going, but either way my deep, deep preference is the dramatization of the romance novel. And then I would like them to plot it and pace it in time for there to be both sex and joy. I want more Bridgerton bants.
Bridgerton bants. I want
so much more Bridgerton time. I want to make sure that all of the siblings can be together. I want time with Violet and Kate, which we didn't get. I want to realize this family. I would like so much less Featheringtons. I mean, like, honestly, Portia can be in like 2 episodes, and I'm happy with that. Again, they're not going to do that. Other things that I would love that won't happen, but I would deeply love, is that we pick Benedict next, and that it is his love would be non-binary, which would be like my ultimate joy. But that will, I don't think they're brave enough to do that.
I don't think so.
But somebody with a different body type than we've seen. So whether that is somebody with a physical disability, whether that is a woman who is exceptionally tall, whether that is somebody with dwarfism, whether that is somebody my size, pick a body we haven't seen, and let that be his love interest. That would be, they won't do it, but those are all my things.
Those are your hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think I would like them to decide what they're doing with Marina and Sir Philip and be more explicit about it.
Great point.
I would love to see that and see whether or not we get, whether, you know, and we didn't say this explicitly, but we talked about it offline. They left the door wide open for whose season this is going to be, whose story this is going to be. Could be Eloise, could be Penelope, could be Benedict. I think those are our 3 options. They're not going to go like Francesca, obviously, because she's too young. Those are our 3 options. It could go either way. I don't have a preference at all, as long as they choose. Because they're going to obviously continue to tell the other 2 stories, whatever one they don't, to advance them. So I would like some kind of answer as to why Marina and why Sir Philip, instead of just a random appearance in season 3 and then, you know, we pick it up in season 4. That's nonsense. You can do better with that. I would love to see them expand the idea of diversity beyond race.
Yep, 100%.
Would be great if we're creating an imaginary world where Asian people and Black people, let's go. Let's create this imaginary world where there are people on crutches or people with dwarfism. Or, you know, maybe Benedict falls in love with somebody who is neurodivergent. I don't know. A neurodivergent non-binary person. Wow.
All the intersections.
All the intersections. But, you know, if we're showcasing humanity, warts and all, like, let's properly do it here, Bridgerton folks. So I would like to see that. I don't hold out a lot of hope for it. I want to see continued Team Whistledown content. I am intrigued where Penelope is going. I don't know.
I'm so scared. I'm so scared.
I'm scared she's going to have, like, a Vader turn. Like, I'm scared she's going to go a little dark side with this, like, breakup with Colin and Eloise for, like, a season. What if they do, like, a horrible season 2 Friday Night Lights thing?
She cannot murder anybody with a shovel. I'm gonna put my foot down right now, and I'm gonna tell Jesse Plemons to stay super far away from Bridgerton.
Jesse Plemons, do not bring your Lance energy anywhere near season 3, please and thank you.
But I think she could become bitter and become really withdrawn in on herself, and I don't like that.
No.
It would be a completely valid character choice,
especially with
reaction.
Especially with the story they've told.
It would be a very valid character reaction with the story they've told. I would not enjoy watching it. So I hope that it does not happen or it is brief.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing that we're grappling with, right? Is as we have shared, we do not often choose for our entertainment stories that lean into the drams.
It's not my favorite.
There's a reason we both stopped watching Grey's Anatomy. But you know what? There's a reason a lot of people are still watching Grey's Anatomy.
And we respect that. So, like, we know it's our corner of the internet. These are our opinions.
This is our tiny little corner of the internet. You know, there's a reason I did not finish How to Get Away with Murder. And you dropped out way earlier than I did.
I dropped out in the middle of season 1. I made it 2 seasons of Scandal.
Yeah, I never even watched Scandal, so...
I watched the entirety of Off the Map for Maddie Saracen, but that thing got canceled.
Oh, Maddie Saracen. God.
I watched no Private Practice. There's no Private Practice for
me.
My mother watched
episode.
Private.
Yeah.
Joycey watched it because of Taye Diggs.
Fair.
Which is a valid life choice. But I didn't know, and I dropped out of Grey's when I moved to Belfast the first time because getting it through methods was complicated. So
Yeah, I think Ghost Sex was when I dropped out.
oh no, it's Ghost Sex,
Grace.
and I saw that in Waco. So I'm incorrect. I just caught up on it when I got back to Waco. Yeah, I dropped out of Ghost Sex. Yeah,
Ghost
that's
Sex
when I dropped
was.
out. Yeah.
You know, we all have our lines in the sand.
And I just followed Jeffrey Dean Morgan over to Supernatural, and I was happier there for about 5 seasons, and then I also stopped watching that show. I am not a bitter ender. If the story
Lost
is no
broke
longer
that in us.
Lost broke a bitter ender. I was a bitter ender until Lost.
And then I was like, oh, you're gonna throw it in my face?
Cool.
Okay.
If I'm not having fun, I'm leaving.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great gift of my late 20s and early 30s. Was like,
honestly, I was like, oh, okay.
I'm not liking this book. I don't have to. You know what? War and Peace isn't doing it for me. I'm gonna put it down.
I'm never picking it back up.
I don't care what society says. It's not for me. Yeah, so we understand we're in a bit of a pickle here as devotees of Julia Quinn and the Bridgerton series and the romance genre. Yeah, it's a bit of a pickle.
I just, again, like, I'll be really flexible. I'm gonna be super honest. I'm not gonna be cranky if we just get sex and joy. Pace it so I get sex and joy. Do whatever else you want.
I think we've learned lessons from this season in terms of our expectations for the show.
Totally incorrect. I need to have almost none, but I'm just gonna hold out hope for sex and joy.
Yeah, because, like, you know, we talked about this. Balance is a theme of romance. The seasons 1 and 2 gave us balance, and the end result for the couple that was the focus. I think carrying into season 3, that will be my expectations.
Yeah, that they will end up together at the end.
Which is a puzzle a bit for Benedict because he's kind of an outlier. So we don't know where he's going. His story kind of comes out of nowhere in the books, and it, you know, doesn't happen in London, a lot of it, and is a bit odd. So is Eloise's. So, like, you know, we're not sure what story they're telling with them, but as long as they tell me who they're going to end up with, and they end up with that person, that's cool. It's clearly not going to be plot device Theo Sharp. God love him. I hope it gets the actor some more work because he's delightful and from Northern Ireland. So, hopefully you get noticed for this. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. Like, show me the balance, show me the journey of the two humans, and get the two humans together, and I will add my seconds to your sex and joy, please. And thank you.
Nicola Coughlan teased that it could be in the spring of 23. So I'll take it, which means we'll start casting and maybe some more rumors soon, which we will be eagle-eyed on this. I will tell you that as much as this frustrated me, it has nowhere near frustrated me as much as The Crown, which The Crown and Handmaid's Tale are the two shows I am watching, and I am not having any fun. But I am having a ton of fun complaining about them, which is why we still have the YouTube channel about them. But if someone's like, she doesn't watch anything that doesn't bring her joy, like, what about The Handmaid's Tale? You're correct. That's an asterisk. This one drove me batty, but, like, again, best proposal of all time. I loved so much of it. I can watch the costumes forever. The soundtrack is incredible.
Oh, it's in fire.
I loved my time with these folks. And whenever you're watching this, if you're about to tune into season 3, or you're joining us in the wait for season 3, we hope that we've been able to give you a good entry point into season 3, whatever that is, a good summary of season 2. This is our longest Bridgerton video to date, I think. But
I'd have to go back and look at our season 1 recap because it was long, but I'm going to say it was like 45 minutes. I think
it was 45. I don't think it was an hour, which we're scraping right now. So
we have a lot to say about it, and you know, it's different for us because we have to say a lot out of love, whereas we say a lot about The Handmaid's Tale out of frustration, and The Crown out of frustration. But I feel warm and fuzzy about this season. I've accepted that some of my criticisms of the show's direction will not be listened to, and I pray that some of them will be. And I think that is where I am ready to leave season 2.
Sex and joy.
Please, please, and thank you. That's why we have shelves full of romance books in our houses.
You really should not even bother looking at our Kindles, to be completely frank. But what you should bother looking at is the rest of our content. So if you would love to do that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel where we talk about things a lot outside of Bridgerton. And we focus on how do we understand humanity a little bit wider and better. And that's one of the reasons we analyze Bridgerton so intensely, because this is a great example, when they're being characters and not plot devices, of different ways to see and experience humanity. And we're really grateful for that time with them, and then all the pretty dresses. If you check the downstairs, we'll have some links to our newsletter, which gives you food for thought once a week, and some other videos and content. Please like this video so that more folks see it. And no matter what, whenever you're watching this, we hope we see you for season 3. All the best. Bye.
Bye.